That's right. The pod is finally back. It'll probably be the last one we'll do for PGA. I might do some for college football and NFL. But with it being the last major, I felt like I had to get one more pod in. My Discord was unanimous that I needed to invite Tom Jacobs on to be my guest, and he obliged my request, and we had a great little chat. I think you guys are really going to talk about it. Of course, we talked Euro versus American golf. Of course, we talked a lot of Open Championship, a little bit of Scottish Open, and even teased some Ryder Cup. It's a really fun conversation. I think you're going to enjoy it. I'm going to be doing tons of giveaways for the Open Championship this week, where you can build tickets with me. If you want to get in that, simply subscribe to this video, turn on your notifications, and go leave a comment and tell us what is the one thing you're going to be looking for in the guys that you play this week, right? You going off the tee, around the green, approach, history at the course. I want to know what you're looking at this week, right? And also, don't forget, a ton of content coming at you. I've already put out my course preview video. Go check that out. Right now, you're about to watch hopefully you're watching this on Sunday. You're watching the pod, and then of course the emergency stream will still be going on 7 o'clock Lord's time zone on Wednesday. I know it's like 5 hours before lock. I don't give a shit. All right, and then we will be doing round 2, round 3, and round 4 showdown hoedown live next week. Probably pretty early in the day, right when the round ends, right? So be looking out for those. And yes, there will be a Sunday sweat show, just like we have for the U.S. Open. Sadly, I won't have Sia, but I'll have somebody else, so be looking out for that. All right, guys, here's the pod. That's right, we're back. You know it's a special occasion if I'm busting out the pod. I hear all of you saying, why don't you ever do the pod anymore? Well, A, I'm lazy. B, they take a lot of work. And C, there's just not enough people that I want to talk to, okay? I'm not just going to have any bum on. So, you know it's a special occasion when the pod's out, and that special occasion just happens to be the Open Championship is here, our last major of the year, and I'm going to enjoy every second of it. So, like most Americans, I'm an ignorant motherfather when it comes to knowing about the DP World Tour. And so I asked my Discord, hey, Discord, if I needed an expert on the DP World Tour and on link style golf and on the Open Championship, who is the one guy I should get? And it was pretty much unanimous what the answer was. The answer was Tom Jacobs, and that it happens to be my guest today. He is the host of Lost for Words, and I'm pumped to have him come on and help educate my ignorant American ass about some of the nuances of European golf. Tom, how you doing today, brother?
James, that was a wonderful introduction. Always very nice to hear. Lovely to hear the guys in Discord. Look forward to having me on. So no, really happy to be here. And yeah, great. It's been a week. You know, you ramp up the content around the Scottish and the Open Championship if you're over here on the British Isles, if you like. And it's a good couple of weeks for us. We normally have the Irish Open the week before, but they've taken it off the schedule, moved it to September. I think more for the Ryder Cup this time around. And to get some of the guys in after the FedEx Cup and things like that. So a little bit of a change in schedule. We'll wonder if that will have any impact. We can kind of get into that later. But yeah, pumped to be here and looking forward to talk about the Open Championship.
I got to tell you, I love watching golf at like 3 in the morning here, right? But yeah. Then when 8 a.m. rolls around, I'm like cross-eyed tired. So the one downside is sleeping schedule is going to get fucked. You got to just accept that. But when you're watching it, the novelty of watching golf in the middle of the night is my favorite thing about the Scottish Open, the Open Championship, is like as an American, it's just nothing better than watching golf in the middle of the night until you're tired as shit and you got to go make content. Then all of a sudden you're not such a big fan of it.
I bet. Yeah, I mean, look, I think the really, like, we're okay with the Eastern time zone events, right? But it's when we get over to the West Coast, it's tough for us. So the US Open was tough, like finishing at 3 a.m. in the morning. And especially when Wyndham Clark's kind of got it sewn up after, or it looks like Wyndham Clark's got it sewn up for after a while, like it, or nothing really happens. You kind of get a bit fed up. You stayed up for, 3 or 4 hours past midnight. But, it is what it is. I look forward to these events like any other. This is kind of our.
Were you as tilted when Wyndham Clark hit that drive on 18? Like he fanned it out there like I would my drive, right? I mean, that thing looked 60 yards to the right, and it landed in the fairway.
See, I don't care. Like, I think it's one of those ones where I think, look, he's trying to win his first major championship. I don't think he would have found it outright if he didn't have that much room. I think it's the golf course's fault as opposed to Wyndham Clark's fault. It was just a bad finishing hole, right? Like, if that hole was on hole 7, no one would really have cared. It's just the fact that it's the finishing hole.
That's a solid point. That's the best point I've heard so far about it. All right, this is an important question I always have to lead with because I think it tells me a lot about a person. How good are you at actual golf? Can you swing? Are you a stick, as they like to call them around here?
No, if we were to sort of characterize my swing, it'd be like an octopus falling out of a tree, I think, is kind of what we say. if I'm I don't know, a low teens handicapping podcasting, I'm definitely double that in real golf. But it's funny because like you speak to some of these kind of professional golfers on the podcast and all that sort of stuff, and they say, "Oh, look, we'll go for a round of golf before I play the Open Championship." And then Ted Scott, when I had him on the podcast, he's like, "I'm coming over to the Open. We'll play some links golf." I said, "Look, no." Like I'll carry your bag for once. I'm not going to show myself up in front of touring pros and caddies. So yeah, look, it's one of those ones where I think I've got a decent driving range swing, and then when I get out onto the golf course, it's a massacre.
I'll tell you this. I trust a man more who sucks at golf than good golfers. It's just something about being good at golf just makes me not trust you because it's the hardest damn sport in the world. And
No,
so,
I feel like if I was good at golf, I wouldn't be doing as much as this.
yeah,
So it's
exactly.
probably a benefit. Like I would be out playing golf, right?
Yeah.
Well, not right now because it's pitch black, but like it would be, I'd be definitely playing more golf. And look, I think it's one of those things. It's the only sport, right, where you just have to completely manipulate the ball. That's how I've kind of heard that once, and I've kind of stuck with me. Like it's the only one where like soccer, a ball can just come towards you, you can kind of kick it and hope it goes in the right direction. Tennis, as long as you get the racket in the right place. I mean, tennis is tough as shit, right? But like
Right.
it's it. I think golf is the hardest sport, so I'd rather talk about it 10 hours a day than try and play it for fun.
Absolutely. I like to do them both, but I also understand that like going to play a round of golf is just like playing week long at DraftKings. I just expect a swift kick in the nuts every time I do it, and when you go into it with that expectation, way more enjoyable. If you go in, I'm gonna do
Yeah, I mean,
well. You're gonna be disappointed every time.
I was certainly the guy at I'd say my early 20s that was sniffing clubs out of frustration because I was so desperate to be good at golf, and now I just don't care. And
Yep.
actually, I probably play better because of it. So,
Yep.
look, yeah, that's my take on my golf swing. Hopefully, I bring you better content than I do my golf swing. That's the idea.
Well, let's start. This is the number one thing that I would want to know, and I think people watching this would want to know. In your opinion, what is the biggest difference in style of golf and golfers between like American style golf, which most people watching this are going to largely know, and European style golf? Obviously link style courses and stuff like that, but like skill set, types of players, talent. Like what would you say like differentiates the two the most?
Yeah, so I think you look. I think going back maybe 8, 10 years ago when we're talking like prime Westwood and Poulter and things like that, we had great ball strikers with really good short games, and they weren't the longest hitters, none of them really, but they were really scrappy on and around the greens, and they could kind of make the putts that maybe some of the best American players lacked because it was different greens or things like that. We don't actually play as much links golf as they would have you believe, and I think we'll get onto this, but like I think like the European form is overrated when it comes to Open Championships and Opens this week because people just expect us to be better at it than we are. But when you think about I'm having this kind of conversation now about the Ryder Cup recently. They're talking about how we don't lose on European soil, right? But the trouble is now is our 3 or 4 best players are American golfers, effectively. Like if you think about what Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, Viktor Hovland, and the like won, we haven't really got that skill set. So if we make it tough for the American team, we're making it tough for ourselves. So I think there's definitely going to transition now where we are basically nearing towards the American golfer. You look at the kind of like Rasmus Højgaards, Nicolai Højgaards that are coming on. It's all big, driving off the tee. We've got a couple of players like Alejandro Del Rey that's come over from Arizona State. He hits it 360 yards, and that's his game, right? So I think that's definitely creeping in now. So I think that the biggest difference was that we were kind of scrappy on and around the greens. We had a better iron player at the top of the game, but I think that is going. And then I guess segueing on to kind of our next kind of point is the talent gap is big right now. Like it is big. And I think there's a certain level of player that can close it. And I really admire what kind of Aaron Rai and Minwoo Lee and Ryan Fox are doing recently. But then you look at people like Christian Bezuidenhout, who people loved on the DP World Tour. He's been struggling for a decent amount of time on the PGA Tour, and people expect him to be good. And we're going to find out at the end of the season, right, that the top 10 players from DP World Tour are going to get PGA Tour cards automatically going forward. And I think we're going to see quite quickly how big of a difference it is. Like Ryan Fox is playing great right now on the PGA Tour, like really solidly, but he's not contending for the win, right? Whereas if he was on the DP World Tour, he'd be contending every week. So that's the difference. Every time you see a player playing a bit of PGA Tour golf and they come back to the DP World Tour, they're right in contention.
So European, let's just say a DP World Tour average player, not the studs, the average player,
Yeah.
probably a good step above a Corn Ferry player, but probably a good step below a middle of the road PGA player. Is that fair?
I would actually say I'd say we're closer to Corn Ferry now,
Ooh, some
which is
slander.
maybe, yeah. I mean, look, as a European kind of guy and a person that talks about it every week, like when you look over at the best, I guess the best example at the moment, we're all playing the Barbasol Championship right now, and our best or our best of the rest are over there. And look, we will compete for the first two rounds, and it'll look really good, and then we'll start fading away when I think it comes to crunch time. And you look at like a Lucas Glover, if he was playing on a DP World Tour, I dare say he'd have a couple of win seasons. So I think I'm ultimately being a bit harsh, and that's maybe just a pessimistic Brit in me. But like, I think that European golf right now is struggling, and it's because everyone's just working to get to the PGA Tour, right? Because that makes the most sense.
You know what the current line? You're more of a better than me. You know what the current line off the top of your head is for the Ryder Cup right now? Because you made me just want to go drop some bags on America.
Yeah, I feel like it was. I think USA might have been like -300 or something like that. Like it
Ooh,
was.
damn.
It's not like we. It might not be that
Okay,
significant, but
I
like
can't do minus
I think
300.
yeah, I think the thing is like we have a really good top eight now. So
Yeah.
we've got Rory, Victor, Rahm, Lowry, Fleetwood, Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Rose. I'm probably forgetting a couple of others, but like then
I
there's a real gap now of like who do we put on? Like we're already trying to put Luva Dayberg on the team because he's had like two or three good tournaments, and that I think is probably the most obvious sign of where we're at the moment.
Okay, this is one. This is something that I've gotten really big in 2023 at doing a thing called strokes gain, like psychology, like trying to figure out like how players are affected. Because we always just look at approach and off the tee, and all those things do matter. But I think that there's some
Yeah.
stuff that's much tougher to measure, tangibly or quantifiably. And I've kind of gotten on this thing about like strokes gain psychology, and I've always wondered, and I feel like you would have a better idea of this. Is jet lag a real thing? Like when guys are flying across, especially Americans going over there, because we don't travel across the pond often. I know the Euro
Yeah.
players probably come to America much more often, so they're probably used to that jet lag feeling, and it's nothing to them. I once again, I don't know. Is jet lag a real thing that can affect a player who gets to a tournament, say Monday, before a tournament that starts Thursday? Like, is that something to consider, or is that all nonsense?
I don't think so. I think that ultimately, like, especially when you think about the people. So, if we're thinking about the players that are going to contend for the golf tournament, so let's say Scotty Scheffler wasn't in the Scottish Open this week and he came straight over from the John Deere Classic or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
he would be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And that's probably because he's traveling in luxury and, he's getting the rest that he needs. And I think ultimately there's so much technology out there now with like Whoop and things like that. They know how to get themselves rested. They know what time to go out and play their practice rounds. And ultimately, like the best players don't need it anymore. I think the guys that are middle of the pack would use it. Would say, look, I've been traveling. I think the ones that go out to Australia and then come back to America and then go to England might be, struggling. But I think ultimately it's a little bit of an excuse. Like if you're a professional golfer and you land on a Monday, you're going to figure it out by pro am on a Wednesday, I guess.
You just said something that really piqued my interest. You said the Australia coming over. Have you heard any rumors? Is Cam Smith already over in the
So
motherland
he,
over there with
so
you?
he was over for the live event in Centurion, which is in London, or it was not in London, but it's close enough. So I presume he stayed
Okay. Yeah. What's live? I'm so bad about knowing anything about live. Like
here.
they literally played here in my home state like a couple months ago, and I was like, wait, live
Yeah,
was here? I had no idea. I didn't give a
yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah. So like I've made feel I've spoken to a lot of people that have been on live and things like that. So like I kind of see it from their point of view. And I went to the event last weekend, but like Cam Smith was just spraying the ball everywhere. Like he hit like 51% of the fairways and one with a really streaky putter. So that, as we talk about oil lake in a bit, is probably not going to work. So um, yeah, I think he's still here, and I think Kepka's probably stayed over as well. I know Gooch has been traveling around kind of Paris and England, so he's acclimatized. But yeah, I think the guys that come over for live have probably stayed around.
Okay, so I think you gave us a perfect segue there. Let's just move to the Open Championship. That's basically
Yeah.
the meat of what this needs to be. First of all, I think we need to start with the big picture stuff. Of the four majors, where does the Open Championship rank for you?
Second. So
Okay.
I'd go Masters, Open Championship, And I think now I'd go PGA and then US Open.
Okay.
I
And
thought about this. I thought about this when you asked me because I think that those last two are contentious, but the first two are very clear for me.
all right, so the U.S. Open and the PGA Championship, you don't enjoy that we tend to see more carnage there than we do at the Masters and at some of the Open Championship venues.
So I don't like the US Open in the sense that like it feels like only one type of player could win in recent years. So I think that was like I want to see Merion where like Billy Horschel was hitting 18 greens of regulation, shooting level par, and he was right in the mix. So that would be the US Open that I kind of think about. The PGA, I think you get a perfect blend of like a little bit of low scoring on certain days, and you get the US Open conditions at times as well. So I think actually the PGA getting that move earlier into the schedule is kind of you know, lifted them in value and kind of devalued the US Open a little bit, which is tough for the US Open. But again, like you guys probably disagree and enjoy the US Open, so it's probably all quite feel, I guess.
And I assume, once again, ignorant American here, first one to admit it. Is the Open Championship just like a massively big deal over there? Like, let's say the Masters is over here for our little PGA community?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like I think it's one of those ones. I think it's probably venue dependent. Like when it's at St Andrews every 5 years, like people get really excited about St Andrews. But by the way, worst viewing golf course ever for the public. Like I went to St Andrews, didn't see anything, hated it.
What? Why is that? I don't know anything
It's
about
just
that.
it's just the way like it's the routing for it and just the galleries can't see an awful lot. It's just the way it's constructed. The property's not great. Whereas like Troon, I saw like Henrik Stenson and Phil Mickelson go toe to toe and saw every shot. So like I really enjoyed True. And actually, Hoylake I went to in 2014, loved it. It was a really good course to walk around, good golf that week. So yeah, it's definitely golf course dependent.
Do you go to most of these Opens?
So I went for maybe 4 or 5 years in a row between. So I went to Hoylake was my first one, and then went all the way through to like 2018. Stopped going for a little bit, and then went to 2021 because it was just down the road from me where I live in Kent. But yeah, I get to them pretty much. I'm not going next week, and I'm probably won't go to wherever it is next year. But it's yeah, I try to get to them as much as I can.
I have a potentially terrible take for you. I think going to
Yeah,
actual golf events is overrated as shit. I've been to a PGA
yeah it is.
Championship, U.S.
Yeah,
Open. You get hot as shit. You get sunburned. You have to, like it just the days are so long. Especially if you get out there in the morning and you stay till the last guys are done.
yeah.
Your ass is kicked, and you do that 4 days in a row. You're toast. You're toast.
I completely agree. So this is where like I think so when I was younger and you go kind of like your dad or your friends or whatever, it's kind of like a it's an event, right? But if I'm just going because I want to watch golf, not great. Like I went to live last week, it was something new. I was kind of intrigued to see what it was like, and it was good. Like I had a link there, so I enjoyed it. But like we went to St George's for the Open in 2021. Sunburnt on the first day, absolutely horrendous. Had to wear trousers the next day because I was so sunburnt, and then it's just really hot, no shade because it's an open course. So yeah, I actually completely agree. And you don't see it a lot. Like people think that they're getting an edge, and like 2015 St Andrews. And this is a little bit of a segue. Like at 2015 St Andrews, it started raining. Leishman was in the clubhouse, and people just assumed he was going to get caught. And we just looked at the conditions as we were standing there. I was like, he won't get caught today. So we bet him at 50-1. He got into the playoff. My dad had bet Oosthuizen as well, and then Zach Johnson won. So that was how our week went at St Andrews. That's probably what tainted that a little bit. So you get a little bit of like an edge in the sense of like maybe you can see what the conditions are, but you can't honestly tell me when you go to a golf event that you can get a feel for how a golfer's playing any more than you can on TV.
All right, random trivia question because you brought up the 2015 Open at St Andrews. Who was leading at the 36-hole mark?
DJ?
Oh, you're incredible. Let me tell you, the only reason I know that is that was the very first PGA DFS event I ever played. I was bored as shit because obviously there's no sports in the summer, right? So I was like, I'm going to try out this golf thing. I literally remember making my lineup, and I made it, and I had Zach Johnson and Dustin Johnson in it. And my logic was I can't have two guys with the same last name. So I pulled out Zach Johnson, and I left Dustin Johnson in there. And I can still vividly remember Dustin Johnson making like a 15-foot par putt on 17 or 18 to save his bogey-free round. I was all excited. I was like, wow, this is really fun. I enjoy this. And then he just completely melted down the next 2 days. Yeah. And as we know, Zach ended up winning. And I was like, God, that's the motherfather I had picked. Randomly. I didn't even know who the hell Zach. I didn't know who anybody was. I'd never even heard of Dustin Johnson. So incredible.
And the best part about that the best part of that Zach Johnson win, right, was that he had just come over from the John Deere Classic, so he chartered over from there. I don't think he won, did he? But I think he was up in contention. Chartered over. Um, he turned up at St Andrews, said, "I can't win at this golf course," which is exactly the same things he said about Augusta, and that's the two places that he's won major championships. So this is why I don't listen to golfers very much anymore, because I think they just talk nonsense.
Matter of fact, when I hear stuff like they got new clubs or Morikawa can't hit his fade, that makes me like them all the more. Right?
Yeah, exactly
Outside of it,
yeah.
I'll take injury news serious, because like I think they're high performance sports cars and just the littlest thing will get them off. But when it's something silly like Viktor Hovland got new irons this week, I can't play him. Get the fuck out of here with that. Like I'm not buying any of that nonsense.
No, I agree. If anything, there's a reason they've changed it over, and that these guys get looked after. That everything goes into the changeovers. They're just it's all put on the simulator now and told how the best results. So yeah, I don't let things. I guess the one recent memory was when Morikawa finished like 76th at the Scottish Open, then won the Open the next week.
Yep.
That was probably the biggest off put. And then it turns out that he knew, like he said afterwards, like I learned how to play through the turf that week, and it was like, of course, we didn't get that information the week before. So that's the kind of thing you get.
Is golf reporting the most tilting thing ever? Or let me rephrase that. The lack of golf reporting the most tilting thing ever?
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, like, I can't believe like US sports, right? Like, it's typical you get like an injury report, right? And there is a Twitter account that does golf injury reports, but they're only getting information they're picking up from tweets and interviews. There should be a legitimate, like, his back is hurt and he could pull out. Like that probably should be a thing. There should be just someone dedicated to talk about injuries on the range.
And it's not even like it would give the players a disadvantage. Like at team sports, you don't want people to know your quarterback's hurt because then they're going to go attack that. You don't have that problem in golf, so just fucking let us know if you've got a tweaked rib.
This is what I mean. Like you saying you're not playing very well is just not going to make anyone else's life easier. They've still got to play the golf course. So it's a weird thing, golf. It's just, I guess it's a bit of a weird sport in general, isn't it?
Seamus Power just up and WD'd like midway through the first round. Yeah. Like no inkling that anything was wrong with Seamus Power, and then he's just gone. Like give me something.
Yeah, it's the worst. Yeah,
whatever. No. All right, let's talk about the course. I don't want to show off to you, but I know dick about this course. I'm going to do all my research tonight for my course preview show, but I was definitely going to talk to you before I started spewing shit about being an expert and knowing anything about this course. So it's at Liverpool, right?
Yeah, Royal Liverpool.
Royal Liverpool, excuse me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know what's royal about it, so I wouldn't worry about that. But yeah, that's what it's called. When I went, it was definitely just called Hoylake, and now it's definitely being called Royal Liverpool, so I don't know what changed there. But
when was the last time they played here?
2014. So Rory McIlroy won here in 2014, and then Tiger Woods won in 2006.
So not very good winners at this one.
No, yeah, just
random slap dance. Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, how would you have found those guys?
All right. Is this one that's been in the Rota for a long time?
Yeah, it's been on and off. Like it's one that doesn't get used as regularly as some of the others, but yeah, it's been the most recent ones are 2006, 2014. They're the only ones that really matter, I guess, in the sense of how long golf's been since then and what's changed.
All right, so give me the bullet points. What are the things we want to know? I'm going to assume, because I'm an ignorant American, it's a link-style course, because that's what we think that all courses in Britain and Scotland and Ireland are.
Yeah, no, it is a proper links test. So I think that it was probably fair to say that the Scottish Open was a modern links test with some of the holes that weren't necessarily by the course, but coast. But this one is. It's just over just in between 7,300 and 7,400. It's a par 71 now instead of par 72, which is a change from 2014 because they've lengthened. They've changed one of the holes from a par 5 to a par 4. So hole 10 in 2014 was just getting torn apart. I think Rory birdied 3 of the 4 days, and now they've changed it. It's over a 500-yard par 4 now. So that's a change there. They've added 40 yards to 15 and 60 yards to 18 on the par 5s as well to try and get those a little bit more difficult. So that being said, like the natural thing to think is the winning score going to be a little bit tougher this time around? So it was 17 under in 2014 and 18 under in 2006. I don't think it's going to be that much different. I think probably 17 under is a good target again this year.
And was it a 72 or a 71 back in 14?
72 then.
So just like, so if they played it the same as that year, the winning score would be the same. In theory, this year the winning score would be -10, right? Because they're taking 4 strokes off
Yeah,
with a okay. But you think that
yeah.
it's going to
But
probably play a little bit
I,
easier if you still think it's going to be
yeah,
14 to 18, right?
I think the issue is this time around is that so in 2006 it was all baked out. Tiger Woods famously only hit like 2 drivers that week. He hit like 80% of the fairways using a 2 iron, whereas like Rory McIlroy got a little bit of rain the day before the Open Championship and hit his driver everywhere. Led the field in distance, but crucially he was 20th in accuracy as well. So he wasn't just long; he was pretty straight as well. So if it softens up, which looking at the weather the last few weeks, it will be pretty soft. I think that ultimately the only real defence is going to be there's out of bounds on 6 of the holes, and there's a lot of tall fescue grass. So if you miss like you will get severely punished for missing the fairways here. So it's not like the PGA Championship where if you went far enough right or left, you would have missed the crowds and it'd have been travelled down. Like you're out of bounds or you're in fescue. So driving accuracy will be a bit of a premium here. I think the longer hitters will prosper because it will be a little bit soft. So I think the formula, which tends to work in any event, James, is long and straight.
So you're telling me that Cam Smith is not going to be the best fit? Because I got to tell you, I just always love Cam Smith.
Interestingly, I wanted to bet Cam Smith, and the more I look at it, and the more I listen to kind of some of the research shows and some of the articles, Steve Bamford's done some good ones over the last couple of weeks. Like I am put off by Cam Smith. Just looking at him like Liv last week, he was just spraying it everywhere. So I think he can keep himself competitive. I think he could be top 10 again. I just think he's probably going to be held back from winning based on that driving issue.
And I think the real tragedy is this is going to be my 8-year anniversary of beginning PGA DFS, and it just feels like fucking Rory's going to win, and I'm no longer going to have my whole brand be built around Rory's a fucking loser because he's finally going to win a major for the first time since I've been watching golf.
And I've built a very similar brand to you. I say the same sort of things as well. I think that ultimately, look, it's very clear why Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy are the top 2 in DraftKings, why they're top 2 in the betting board, right? They are the best 2 golfers in the world, clearly at the moment. John Rahm hasn't had the best Open Championship record. I think that's probably going to even out in years to come, and this might be a good golf course for him. But
by the way, the John Rahm thing, do you
right.
think that that's just chance? Like, you think that that's an anomaly, I guess would be the better word? It's not based on anything. It's not his lack of patience or his style of game. It's just like we need a larger sample to really figure out what he is there.
Yeah, I think we need a larger sample, and I think also the thing with like Open Championships, which I could go into every single tournament and check the tee times, but like he could have been caught on a really bad weather wave. Like that's the sort of thing that can happen to the Open Championship. Like he was 3rd in the 2021 Open Championship at St George's when I went, and he's been 11th and 34th either side of that as well. So it's not like he's bad. Like he's like 5 from 6 made cuts, and he's got a 3rd and 11th, so he's good enough, and he's served that kind of apprenticeship for major championships now. He's won 2 of them coming into this one. I think that potentially, I mean, look, the PGA Championship's not been that great for him either. He's had 4th and 8th, but he's been pretty poor the last 2 years there. So it's just going to depend. I think he is the type, like him and Cyril Hatton are the obvious people you look at and go, they're just going to get too tilted by links golf. But I think that gets overplayed a little bit.
I swear to God, Tyrrell Hatton, I want him tilted. Like when he's pissed off, he plays so much. I was watching him today for round 2 of the Scottish Open, and he was like already pissed off on like the second hole. I'm like, he's gonna have a special round. You watch. Whenever he's hitting it to 10 feet and he's cursing, you know you're set.
Yeah, like he's only getting pissed off when he's making birdies and he wants to make eagles. He generally doesn't. Once he gets to like 5 or 6 over, I think he just gets beyond the point of caring. So look, I think there's obviously a reason that Cyril Hatton will be popular.
I feel like Tyrrell Hatton. I once again, maybe a very cold take. I think he is the best player without a major right now. that's a bold one because we got Xander, Cantlay, guys like that, Hovland. None of those.
I guess Ricky gets in the conversation.
Yeah, now that he has a pulse again, I guess he is, right.
Yeah.
But like Hatton, I just think it's a effing stud. He just does not. He's just so good. He goes on these weird spots where he'll get bad for like 3 months, but like when he's on, God, I just think he's like legit a top 5 player in the world.
I think the thing with Hatton, and it's been this season, I think he's really transformed his game that he can really contend in these. But like he's always been on the DPR tour, he was better at the kind of birdie fest events, and then when he was on the PJ tour, he was better at Bay Hill and places like that, Memorial, where it was a tougher examination. But now he's got the perfect blend of making birdies at these tournaments like the Canadian Open and Charles Schwab, or no, it wasn't Charles Schwab, was it the other Texas one? Like
Byron
Byron
Nelson?
Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like he's capable of playing all of them now, and I think that's the best thing he's done this year. And I wonder whether James, whether that's to do with the elevated events. Like these European guys used to go back and forth and play a few in Europe and come back and play the PGA Tour. And now I think they're set and having to play these elevated events every week. I think him and Fleetwood being in the US for so long and so much of the season, I think has been really beneficial to their games.
All right. Where does this course rank kind of like in the spectrum of the Rota? Like, is it on the easier side based on what you're telling me the winning score is going to be? It
Yeah.
has to at least be on the easier half, right?
Yes, it's on the easier side, and I think the only really thing that can happen is that we get a real change in weather. It bakes out and it gets really windy. If it doesn't do that, I think we're going to see similar to St Andrews last year. Maybe not quite as, but I think you look at the last three Open Championships: 20 under, 15 under, 15 under. Like they've all been pretty easy, right? Like it's only you've got to go back to Carnoustie at 8 under for a really tough Open Championship. Royal Birkdale was pretty tough, and Spieth at 12. So I think this tournament everyone has the image of like carnage at an Open Championship, but it's been so long since it was that kind of tournament.
So, do you think that that's just a product of these older courses not being able to keep up with the modern game?
Yeah, and just the only defense is weather.
Yeah.
So if we get better weather and that doesn't come along, then that's it.
By the way, am I using the term rota correctly? I'm trying to talk like I'm not an ignorant
Yep.
asshole. A
No,
rota,
no
I
sound
assume that's just
sounds
like
good to
the
me.
European version of a rotation. That's how I've always thought of it. Is that basically what
Yeah,
it is?
we say the open rotor, and to be honest, I think it's a little bit weird that we use it. So I'm fine with you using it the way you're using it.
All right. All right. I have no idea. I just wanted to sound like I knew what I was talking about.
You do you do sound exactly like you know what you're talking about.
Good. That's my whole thing. Just pretend. Fake it till you make it. All right. So, where will the trouble be? Are we going to have long fescue rough? Is there big pop bunkers? Is it like watching the Scottish Open right now? Is there anything we could derive from this course that will be comparable to there? Is it just the out of bounds on 6 holes that's really going to be the
Yeah,
where they're going to get in
like
trouble?
it's the fact that you go it's so extreme from fairway to rough. It's not like you could get you're fine for 10 yards offline. If you're 2 or 3 yards offline, like you could legitimately lose your ball, you could be out of bounds, you could and you can get a good line at fescue. It's not always bad, and that's probably what's going to tilt people. Like there'll be someone like I don't know, like Rory might hit like 3 drives in a rough and get away with it, whereas I don't know, Brooks might hit like one out of bounds straight away. Like it could change very quickly, but it is going to be that rough that really is the trouble. It is going to be out of bounds if people go a little bit over the top of their driver, and the pop bunkers are always a feat at the Open Championship. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that changes the whole 10 to a par four and the length in par fives, how that affects kind of players' mindsets and where they go on the holes.
The more you talk about this course, the more I'm realizing Cam Smith is going to finish T4 with 2 triple bogeys. I'm calling it right now. T4
Yeah,
with 2 triple bogeys. So if he would just keep the ball in play, he would have won by 4 strokes.
The thing is with him is like we could say this though, and then he could have a good driving week.
Yeah.
Like when we think about where he's won, like he's good at the Players Championship. There's water everywhere.
Mhm.
Like he could just have a week where he's on. It's just been so long since he was accurate that is the issue. But honestly, what he's been doing over the last 2 or 3 months is a quick reminder of what he is and what he was before he went to live. And he kind of spoke about it himself. He was like, "Look, when you get a couple of months off and you don't really have much to play for, you take a couple of months off." And DJ was the same, and both of them are kind of coming to the fore at the end of the season there.
I remember Cam Smith, like back in the day, would be like 7,100, and I'd be like, well, I'm not playing that guy. He sucks. And now I think he is definitively the 4th best player in the world. Like I would argue anybody that he is clearly the 4th best player in the world, in my opinion.
No, it's just because he can make so many putts.
Yeah,
Like he averaged like 1.24 putts per GIR live. Like he's just ridiculous. And his short game is so good. So he's always going to keep himself in the mix. But when he was that guy on the PJ Tour last year, when he was winning 3 or 4 times, his irons were so good as well.
Yep.
And if they's come back, then he's great. I think the thing with this golf course is like listen to Phil Mickelson. He'll talk about like the run ups to the greens and those sort of things. Like if it's soft, that's not going to happen, and that's just going to suit Cam Smith. Like I think people think of Cam Smith as this creative guy who can play Augusta well and that sort of stuff, but I think he benefits from the kind of target golf just as much as everybody else does. So,
Well, here's the thing about Cam Smith. He is creative because he always gets himself in really shitty positions, and he has to be creative.
yeah,
He doesn't just do
not a
it to
choice.
do it.
No, same as Jordan Spieth, right? It's probably
Right.
like a similar type of player skill set, I guess.
All right, best style of player. Like this week at the Scottish Open, I was under the impression that bombers would have an advantage, and to be honest, I kind of see that playing out. I feel like they're just scooting it on down there as far as they want, even when they miss it in the fescue. I watched Viktor Hovland today. I think it was on 6. He just bombs it left way into the fescue, and he still gets it to 10 feet and makes birdie. It's just like it doesn't seem to be any real punishments for driving it far at the Scottish Open. Is that going to be will we see something similar this week at Royal Liverpool?
I think so. I think ultimately, like you're going to hear that you need to be accurate, and you do. But how, how inaccurate do these guys get? Like they're all professional golfers. Like they hit fairways, commonly, right? So I think that there is going to be potentially more trouble here than there was at the Scottish Open, and maybe those holes where you see Viktor Hovland just muscle out the fescue with no problem might not be the case. You might get a bit of a dodgy lie in Liverpool, but ultimately, I think it's the same type of player. I think it's the Viktor Hovlands, it's the Roy McIlroys, especially if it gets soft. And then I think if it does run a little bit and it is kind of dry, then I think we're looking at the Morikawas who are long enough but straighter.
Right.
I think is what we're looking at. I think ultimately you've got to be a good driver. I know that short hitters will be able to kind of hang around the top 15, top 20, but I think ultimately you need that distance.
Do they have deep fairway bunkers? Because if they do, tell me now so I can just fucking take Hovland out of my player pool.
Yeah, there is some. Yeah, I don't want him to go in there, but my theory with Hovland. So when everyone kind of points out like you don't want him to go in a bunker or you don't want him to be chipping around the green, I'm just relying on him to hit every green. Like
Yeah.
that's been the player he's been for so long. So um, I'm very bullish on Viktor Hovland.
Did you see the mess he did round 1 of the Scottish Open where he just put it right into the face of the bunker trying to be a hero again, just like he did at the PGA Championship? The guy just doesn't understand loft of clubs, apparently, when he's in a fairway bunker.
And the thing is, like the thing that he attributed to his success this year was like a new course management coach. Where has he been for
Right.
the last few tournaments?
I mean, they're not even
Yeah.
close. Like, he's putting him directly in the face of the bunker. Like, they weren't, it's not like he just clipped it, like he's right into the face. He got so lucky that it didn't embed. Tilting my balls, that guy does.
He is, and I think ultimately he's so good that he legitimately contends regardless. But
Yeah.
there is definitely a little bit of a block. So although I will probably end up betting him again because
And hey,
for some reason
he's
I've got
turned
it in my
into a
head that he's
sneaky good putter, and people don't give him enough credit for that. He's a good putter now. Like when he's over a 12-footer, I just assume he's going to make it.
and around the greens he's better in the majors than he has been
Yeah,
regularly.
that's
Like
that.
I don't think people look at that. Like if you look at data golf, he's gained strokes around the green in every major. It might be slightly, it might not be a lot, but he's not losing these 2 or 3 strokes that people think he does every week.
Who wins the major first? Hatton or Hovland?
Hovland.
All right, I think I agree. But I don't know. I'm really Hatton's really grown on me, which is funny because I used to not be able to stand that guy.
He is. Oh, I mean, is he like 3rd in strokes gained total this year? Like he's if he ends this season without a win, it's going to be like a tragedy
Yeah.
because he has deserved one. He should have been in the mix more than he has. I think, and I think people will say like, oh, he gets too tilted, that's why he doesn't win. But if you take that away from him, he won't be as good as he is.
Right.
Like because it's that kind of attitude, the fact that he wears it on his sleeve as to why he's the player he is. It enables him, I think. So I don't want him to lose that. I think it's what leads him to making 5 or 6 birdies in a row. But it is also unfortunately the thing that makes the double bogey. I mean, look, the PGA Championship, he was great after round 1.
Yep.
He looked out of it and then he shot like the best scores for the last 3 days, right? He was just.
I will say that Hatton and Hovland have one thing in common that I find hilarious. They will birdie the hardest hole on any course more frequently than like any 2 players I know, and they will bungle up some of the easiest holes on a course like I've never seen. It's insane. They don't make their birdies where everybody else is making their birdies. It's quite incredible.
I think the only place I wouldn't necessarily look for Tyrrell Hatton at the moment is Augusta. He seems to genuinely dislike that golf course and not be able to really get it done there. And I think that his positive results that he's had are a big indictment of what he can do going forward. I think this is a really good major for him going into next week.
All right, so if you had to pick one, what is the most important skill and the least important skill skill set, excuse me. Well, no, a specific skill for players at the Open.
So I think it's the total driving. Like I think you need to look at that. I think without being long enough, you're not going to take advantage of the par fives in the way that they could have done in 2014, 2006. And I think ultimately, I guess putting, because it's like anyone can be good at putting. That's probably the least. You obviously need to be good on the week, but I think it's so variable. And the one thing about the greens here over other Open Championships, they're really flat. They're really flat greens. The course is generally pretty flat. So I think that we'll actually see some struggling putters putt
Because
pretty well this week.
because that's actually, I mean, that's a big feature of link style courses, right? Is big undulating
Yeah,
natural type flowing greens, which you can have some nasty double breakers, especially if you're like 30 40
yeah,
feet away. And you're telling me that these greens tend to be a little bit flatter.
yeah. Just. I mean, they're not flat, but like they're easier than a St Andrews. You're not getting these kind of double greens with
Yeah.
double break and for 50-foot putts. You're not going
What
to have
do
that
you
this week.
do you know the style of grass off the top of your head?
So it's a mix on the grasses, bent Poa and fescue on the green. So it's a real mongrel of greens.
I got it. Are you a grass type truther? Like, do you think that putting splits on different grasses matter, or just good putters are going to be good putters and bad putters are going to be bad putters
I
typically?
think it matters for certain players, but I think ultimately I think you look at kind of Sam Burns, and there's a reason he's called like Bermuda Burns, right? Like there is a definite split for him. Um, and I think that there are players that can cope with the bad breaks that you get on Panorama better than others.
Yeah.
But I don't think ultimately, I think if you're a Scotty Scheffler, there's not a split, even if the stats say so. I think he just needs to be confident and he can get confident on any of them. So I wouldn't expect anyone to rise to the fore based on the greens here this week.
Hey, at least when Scotty misses 3 3-footers on Poa, at least he can say they're bumpy, right? At least he has that
Yeah,
going for him.
exactly that. He can say hit a bit of fescue or something. That's probably what he'll do. So I did you see the interview where he said like um who is it that he said about the putting? That basically the question was like we've been asking, I think it was John Rahm. They're like we've been asking John Rahm about his putting for so long, and he's getting really frustrated. Are you getting frustrated by it? And he was like, yeah, I spoke to John Rahm about that, and he's gave us all this kind of like spill. And the short of it was, yes, he's getting frustrated about it, and he was saying, I'm a really good putter, and I don't really care what you say. Stats don't lie, Scotty. You're not
Yeah, no.
right now.
Which
So
is funny because I used to think of him as a nuts type putter. I was like, this guy,
well, that
he
was his
reminded me
thing.
of peak
Yeah,
Spieth, like 25 feet, it's in
yeah,
the cup every time. How could
yeah.
anybody make putts that frequently from that distance?
So I think that the one thing he said that is true, like because he's just getting so close to the hole so often now,
Yep.
it's so exacerbated. Like strokes gain works in a funny way that if you're consistently close to the hole and you miss a couple of free footers,
Yep.
you're losing a huge amount of strokes compared to what you like. He could still miss the same amount from 15 feet that he was before. It's just those really close misses that he's having because he's there more often.
Exactly right. Exactly. I mean, that is the punishment, but I guess quit fucking hitting it so close then. All right. Good. Just go back
Yeah,
to making
yeah,
the
exactly
17
that.
footers, asshole.
Yeah.
All right, so Scottish Open is right now.
Yeah,
I don't want to date this. We're recording this Friday, new guy. You're watching this
yeah.
on Sunday or Monday if you're a
Okay.
lazy ass. And we're at the 36 hole of the Scottish right now, and it's a pretty good leaderboard. Roy looks like a god. Hatton looks great. Scheffler looks great. It's a great leaderboard. How much do you factor in how guys play at the Scottish Open into plays or bets that you like for the Open Championship?
So I think it's really player dependent, right? So I think that if Rory McIlroy walks out of here, um, still hanging around the top 20, didn't really throw it away, but he just had a positive week, and you can kind of see that he's trying things for next week. I think that's fine. I don't think you need to kind of get lost in the fact that he didn't win the tournament from the 36 hole stage. When I look at someone like Justin Rose, who I was really keen on for next week, and he misses the cut, and he misses it by losing strokes in every kind of aspect except for around the greens, I find that quite concerning. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a certain number of players that I'm bothered by. I think ultimately, if you finish inside the top 30 or 40 and you are interested in that player beforehand, I think you stick with them. So I wouldn't let it completely change my mind, except in a case like a Justin Rose who genuinely looks like shit now that he's just played a week of Scottish Open and was bad in all areas.
So, by the way, you said I had a question, then you said Justin Rose, and you just got me tilted about my 6 of 6s that motherfather killed. Now I forgot my next question. But, it is. When it comes to the studs, do you buy the narrative that some of them are just using the Scottish Open as a tune-up? They're just out there dicking around, messing around with some new swings, trying some flop shots and stuff like that? Or is that just a bullshit narrative that some people come up with?
I think they use that when people don't win like they expect them to. I think that's
Yeah,
probably what it is.
right?
I don't think anyone goes into a tournament not wanting to win because otherwise, what's the point in being there? They could just go and tune up at North Berwick next to it and not play the Scottish Open. So, no, I don't necessarily buy it. I think there are certain players that go, I don't want to win this week and use up all my birdies because I want to use them next week. I think there's a little bit of that. Um, but I don't think people go there actively looking to just work on a game and sacrifice a good tournament for it. There's too much on the line these days in these tournaments. There's too much money, there's too many points, there's too much, like they get so psychoanalyzed that if they had a bad week, it's bad. But like for example, I think about someone like Sam Burns or Brian Harman are both in the top five right now. So I talked about Brian Harman being a good play for the Scottish Open this week because he's got a relatively decent Open Championship record. His ball striking has been really good for the last couple of weeks. He's inside the top five again. If he, I can't remember if he's in the Open Championship yet or not. If he gets one of those top three spots and he gets in, I think he's a really live play because he's shown not only is he informed, but it's carried over to links golf. And Sam Burns, I'm really encouraged by. I mean, I haven't looked into the actual stats and how he's doing it, but like the fact that he's inside the top five
Today was
through the
all
first and
putting.
stage.
It was literally like 4 strokes
Yeah,
putting. I just remember. By the way,
yeah.
Brian Harmon is on DraftKings pricing, so I assume that means he is
No, he's
in the
in. So
field
he's in.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
So
right.
I think so. Like someone like him is great.
I'm gonna lead with. I'm gonna ask you a question, but I'm gonna preface it with this is a trick question. Spieth,
Okay.
Cantlay, and Fitzpatrick all missed the cut this week at the Scottish Open. Which of those three has me the most excited that they missed the cut? Because now I'm going to get them at discounted ownership next week at the Open.
Yes. Because Spieth could still be hurt.
Ooh.
Um,
Ooh.
Cantlay is gonna finish between 15th and 26th. So
that's exactly correct.
if you want to pay up for that, then you can. I mean, look, he's actually nine. What is he? 9-9 at the moment, so it's not too bad. But like,
Yeah.
I've just got to the point where I kept thinking Cantlay was going to sort of luck his way into a win because he was playing too well not to, and it's not materialized. So I've kind of lost a little bit of faith in him.
Sorry, Tom, you're incorrect. The answer was all three. I'm going to play all three of them. And no one's going to play those assholes after they miss. And honestly, I'm just looking at the DK pricing, which I'm not supposed to do. I'm supposed to do it on my course preview show, but fuck it. They're all pricey, man. This pricing's crazy over here. Wait.
Yeah.
What about Spieth's injury? I thought we were over this. I thought he was back. Are you saying that it's still lingering? Is that your hypothesis?
I just think it is. Like I just feel like he's not playing well enough, and I think it's one of those like if you've had a long term wrist injury and you get yourself in some of that fescue, that's going to be a problem. Like
Right.
I think Zalatoris' injury goes back to the Open Championship when he had to pull out. Like I think it can be that serious that you get some really bad lies here. So I don't want to make excuses for bad play for him because ultimately he just missed the cut. And he was what fifth at Memorial. But you just look at his kind of performances. He doesn't miss the cut at Colonial, and he was terrible there. So like I think there's got to be a certain problem, whether it's injury or whether he's just not playing that well. Both of them could be true. But yeah, I think he's going to be the guy at Spieth where this is probably and maybe we'll see something different next week. But it feels like the most under the radar tournament we've had for Spieth for a long time.
Oh, anytime Spieth's low owned, you just play him. I'm telling. And the best thing I can say about Spieth is the guy's not a bitch. Like he will gut it out for you.
Yeah.
Like I literally can't think of a time he's ever entered a tournament withdrawn. Maybe he has. I just don't fucking know.
No, he doesn't mail it in. And like I think the good thing about Spieth is the two players either side of him are going to be popular in Ricky Fowler at 9-8 and Morikawa at 9-6.
Yep.
So you're going to get a decent amount of leverage there, I think.
Okay, I just keep seeing this name staring at me, so I'm going to ask about one specific person, then we're going to talk a little DraftKings before we get out of here. Brooks Koepka.
Yeah.
Your opinion, one way or the other. I'm not even going to lead you, just wherever you want to go with it.
Yeah, I think he's back to top 5 player in the world. I think the injury is behind him. I think that ultimately he walks into these major championships thinking he's going to win them, and that's half of the battle, right? I think that hasn't gone from him. I think he's shown that he does still care, and no matter how much persona he tries to give off, he does. And you can see from the fact that he came so close to the Masters, choked it in his own words, and then won the very next one. That that's what he does. He's got what has he got? Like 4 top 10s in Open
Oh,
Championships.
that's what I was just
Last year
looking
was the
out. I
first
was
time.
about to ask you. I was like, I
Yeah,
wonder what his Open
yeah.
Championship
He's
record is.
so he did play this in 2014, but he was obviously relatively new
Yeah.
at that point. He made the cut, finished it, but he was the guy that was driving it alongside Rory in terms of distance. So he had the same strategy,
Yeah.
wasn't probably quite good enough, and then finished 10th and 6th in his next 2 starts.
Yeah.
So
4 top 10s.
I
And
think he's
yeah, four top
yep.
tens. You're right. And he missed the cut in 22, but I'm pretty sure he was not Brooks in 22.
Yeah, he was broken. Like
Yeah.
I would ignore anything that he done last year. And if I think back to his time on the DP World Tour, like I'm pretty sure he's contended in kind of like Scottish Opens and things like that. I don't think he ever won one, but like he won the Scottish Challenge in 2013 on the Challenge Tour. So like he's capable of these links golf, and he's not a guy that's going to bitch if he gets stuck in the heather. Like he's just in the fescue. He's just going to get on with it. So yes, I like him, and I just wonder if there's going to be a slight discount on him in terms of popularity based on the fact that it was 17th last time the US Open as opposed to first and second.
So I know you do a lot of golf betting. Like, do you do much
Yeah.
DraftKings? Because I in my shithole state of Oklahoma, we're not allowed to sports bet, so I kind of can only rely on DraftKings. And so like, do you get to play much DraftKings?
So we dabble in it. Like it came over to the UK, and people were initially really excited about it, and it never really took off. So I do a show with Matt Vincenzi on Lots of Words, where basically the idea is I pick the guys in the same way. I do the same research for the betting shows as I do the DraftKings, and he's the kind of game theory thing behind it. So I would say that I dabble in it enough that I can make a few lineups and put them together, and I understand the preface of it. I am not by any means a DraftKings expert, but I do enjoy the puzzle, and I'm really intrigued this week because you got like 5,500
Yeah,
golfers this
there
week.
you go. That's where I was going next. Did Scotty Scheffler break the pricing at DraftKings? Because for at least the last 5 years, the minimum player has always been 6,000. Right? Sometimes they would do 5,000 or 5,500 for those weird like the Tour Championship where they get the starting points and stuff like that, where you'd have $15,000 guys. But for a normal 156 man field with a cut, you never see this. Are they? You think they're doing this because Scotty Scheffler's broken the fucking pricing, or what?
Yeah, I think they don't want you to give you a chance to like just jam in your guys, right? Like they're like saying like, look, if you're gonna play Scotty Scheffler and one other high price guy, you're gonna have to go down to these 5,500 guys who literally shouldn't probably be in the field. So,
Right.
interestingly, there's probably a couple that I think you can get away with in the kind of 5, 6, 5, 7 range, but it's risky. Just
Well, I
obviously.
mean, 7 guys in the 5 figures, 3 guys over 11,000, and 1 guy at 12.5. That is, I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, this is the tightest pricing I've ever seen. Until somebody pointed out to me that it goes down to 5,500 on the bottom end. But that doesn't really help you unless you're willing to play those guys, right? Like probably the last playable guys are going to be like 6,500 is going to be the last kind of guys you're going to want to play, which is basically the same as a normal week.
So there's like. So I'll give a few names just to say like the people at sub 6, right? So we've got Richie Ramsey and Connor Seam at 5,900 who have been pretty steady on the DP World Tour. Marcel Seam at 5,800 has been really consistent.
Wait. Didn't you just shit on all these guys and say that they're less talented, and now you want me to jam them in my Open Championship lineups?
I'm saying if you've got desperations, these are the 3-4 guys. Like I don't advocate playing for any of these guys.
Are
I
any
think
of those
that
3 players better than Ben Griffin, who can also do their taxes?
No.
Okay.
Not more talented.
Okay. Just trying to put him on the spectrum. That's it. Because I know Ben Griffin is a below average player, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about all these other guys. I'm just seeing if anybody else is jumping out here on these prices.
Interestingly enough, you mentioned Zach Johnson earlier, right?
Yep.
Like, I've just got it in. I can't shake this feeling that he's going to make the cut.
Yep.
And whether that's enough for someone to play him at 6,000 or not, I don't know. But like, he's sneakily playing a little bit of better golf, and he's won an Open Championship.
Well, if you're going to go with the old guy narrative, let me ask you the ultimate old guy narrative. Is Padraig Harrington a real player still? Like, is he still got like a pulse? Like, I cannot believe what he is doing.
The concern with Harrington is like people aren't missing it and they're going to play it. Like he's going to be popular at
Yeah.
66, I guess. Like if he sticks
Still,
around over the weekend,
he's gonna finish top 20 at the Scottish. He's playing great. I think
yeah,
he's already like, I don't know, maybe T8 right now. I can't fucking remember.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, he's right up
do you have any
there.
do you have any guilty pleasure Euro players? Like, like on the PGA, I have my slapdicks that I go to way too frequently, right? Ironically, one of them is Callum Tarrant at Showdown, who is a British man. So, who is you got any like guys that you're like your Euro slut guys that you see on DK for the Open?
So I've got a new one. It's a new one to me, and it's going pretty well this week so far. It's Daniel Hillier.
Oh
So
yeah.
he has been great recently. He just won his first event at the British Masters, and this really goes out to the DP World Tour's Twitter account, right? Like basically, what they did is they tweeted out saying he was in contention in just his 28th DP World Tour start, and I thought that's interesting because I've known Daniel Hillier's name for like 4 or 5 years, and it just kind of tweaked in my mind that like you kind of write these people off maybe a little bit too early because they haven't played that much golf. And then that was when he was fifth at the KLM Open. He missed the cut in Germany, and then he finished third at the BMW International Open. And I just said, we should keep tabs on this guy. Like, don't give up on him too soon. Didn't take my own advice. He won the British Masters.
Yeah.
Look, he had to go like birdie, eagle, birdie to win it in the last 3 holes. But nevertheless, he won it. And he's right there. He's tied 10th right now.
I mean, I saw how well he did in round one. I played him at Showdown today at round two Showdown. Dude did pretty well. Guy can play.
Yeah. He's great. Ewan Ferguson won the boys amateur here at this golf course, and I'm always a little bit
Uh-oh.
kind of like, look, he won the boys amateur in 2013. It probably doesn't matter now. And he won like 9 and 8, so I wonder what the competition was like.
Who else was that? Was it Matthew Fitzpatrick at the U.S. Open? He'd won some amateur event there when he was a teenager, and then he won the U.S.
He won the
God.
U.S. amateur. Yeah.
Oh no.
So like, obviously the boys amateur is slightly less than that, so it's not probably that significant. There was a Walker Cup here in I want to say like 2019 as well. Fitzpatrick's brother played in it. So there's a couple of guys to look out for there, but I don't think there's anything.
So just to be clear, Wednesday night on my stream, I can say Tom Jacobs said that Ewan Ferguson is Matthew Fitzpatrick's, and he's going to win the Open Championship just like Matthew Fitzpatrick won the U.S. Open because of their amateur thing. I can quote you on that.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, do that, and then when I get all the hate messages, I will just lap it up. I look forward to it.
Oh, you love the hate messages too? You love getting hate messages too? God, it's put it in my veins. I thought Viktor Hovland was going to win this week. They sent me that after round one, and then didn't see that he boat raced the course today. You dipshits.
I found out that actually what I really enjoy is the mute button on Twitter because I've never given anyone the satisfaction of blocking them, but muting is great because they're just shouting into the void. So that's what I've done for now.
Let me just ask you this: have you ever said, guys, you gotta go play this guy, guaranteed winner, go play him? Have you ever said that?
Yes, and it was the worst thing I ever said.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh wow!
The only time I've ever been really confident it's paid and like that, and it's paid off was John Rowan at the Masters this year.
Okay.
I was so adamant that he was the guy. I was like, this is the major he's going to win. He's had like 4 top 7s in however many years he's been there. Like, go and play this guy. He's going to win it. And I couldn't believe that because he had like one bad tournament going into it that we were off of him. So I was very heavily invested. But I've also said things along the lines of like, I don't know who it was, like probably Viktor at the US Open. I was like, that he's going to contend, and he didn't. And it's not a good idea.
So what I do is I literally never say that, but based on by the way, I asked you that you were going to say no, and like I literally have never told anybody to play anybody, yet they will still come at me like I fucking told them to put their mortgage on it or something. It's like, I didn't tell you to play anybody.
Yeah, we make a thing about our podcast is that we present all the information that we can, and you make the decisions from there. If you blindly follow my bets, you're not doing the justice of what we've researched. Like if I give you all the information, all the comp courses, all the stats that matter, you go and find those guys. Like there's got to be a little bit of groundwork from yourself as well, right?
Preach it, brother. Preach it. Everybody. That's what's the most annoying thing about the DFS/betting space is everybody just wants your pick and they don't want to do any of the process for themselves. And my thesis has always been if you're not going to take personal ownership over your process and your picks and you're just getting spoon fed by somebody else, you'll always fucking lose. Right or wrong, that's always been my thesis.
And I think the best messages I ever get are the ones that go, I listened to your show and I was on this guy and he won and I didn't pick him or tip him or put him in my DraftKings lineups, but they picked him based on what we told them. And you'll get this all the time, James, like with your showdown stuff. Like you'll go in and say like, this was my process. This is how I pick someone. You might necessarily pick them, but they go, you put me on him, and that's
Right.
the best. I think that's the best kind of compliment you can get.
Absolutely. Hey, man, I appreciate you staying. Once again, I'm an American. I'm just going to assume it's 4 a.m. there. I'm pretty sure it's like 11, but I'm just going to assume you stayed up till 4 a.m. for me because you're a champion. I really appreciate you coming on. Your insight was incredible. Do me a favor, plug your content and everything so people can find you. Hopefully we can get you a couple new people because if these people have enjoyed this half as much as I have, they're definitely going to want to subscribe.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on. Ultimately, like I just really enjoyed it. I love what you're doing. Checked you out, recently, and I saw you on Pat's show recently. So all the stuff that you're doing is really, really great. So you can find me weekly on the Lost for Words podcast. I host that. Me, Bradley Todd, and Jason Daniels do that show. I also do the DraftKings show with Matt Vincenzi. We'll be doing that on Sunday. I'm also on the DP World Tour's official betting show now, The Tips. So I'm on there infrequently. We rotate guests there. And I also write a sleepers article for Odds Checker on a Monday. So that's where you can find me this week.
2 things. Did you say your Twitter account?
No, so my Twitter account is TomJacobs93.
By the way, editor, put that below him so people can see it. And also the other thing, that DraftKings show you said you did. What's the name of that? Where can we find that one? I just want to know for my own personal.
That's still on the Lost of Words podcast as well.
Okay.
So we do 2 shows a week. We do the
you.
betting show and the DraftKings.
There it is, folks. Another pod. You're welcome, you mother fathers. You're probably not getting another golf until the Players next year, and you're going to deal with it, you slappies. All right, guys, this has been awesome. This has been fun. Let's go kick ass at the Open Championship. Thanks again, Tom. You are the man. We'll see you next time, guys.